Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Davey Deathray here with my guy, Foz Rotten. We are back with another live stream of Movie Punks. How are you doing, Foz?
Great, Davey. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. We're doing this a second time, guys, because we kind of did our intro and I totally forgot to hit the go live button. So that's pretty funny.
Davey, this is going to ruin the world tour, man.
It is. Well, exactly. I think everyone now is going to be like, this guy's a fraud. I'm never watching him ever again. Screw Late Night with the Davey. Forget Movie Punks. Movie Date with Davey and Kate. What's that? I'm out of here. Unsubscribe. But you're in a new spot. You and your wife purchased a house. So it looks like you're settling into the home there.
Yes, sir. I'm broadcasting live from my living room on my brand new couch. Haven't even had time to really enjoy the couch yet. We've been so busy moving and painting and doing everything. This room isn't even touched yet. We painted the ceiling, but we ain't got the sides or anything hung up or nothing like that yet. So I just picked a spot, and I'm like, you can see the cat tree back there with the window where the cat's been staring out, going, "Dad, we don't like the new place."
Yeah, but change the channel, you know.
But yeah, we're in a new place. I'm excited to be here tonight. Nothing stops the Movie Punks from coming through, though.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and it's got to be exciting to own your own spot, and you'll be able to set up a nice little, place to broadcast from and show off all your cool, nerdy shit.
Yeah, I was really wanting to be in here, but I knew I probably wouldn't be by today, no matter how big I dream. But into my new office by the next one that we're doing next month. But honestly, that's only a couple weeks away, really. So hopefully that'll be July. Hopefully by August, I'll be in a cool office, and I can have some cool stuff behind me and look like Davey, be all badass.
You know, it's all about adding that production value, right?
Exactly.
I have to figure out, because I've been using this one for a while, so I probably need to upgrade. Maybe put like a shelf or something right here so I can stack some nerdy stuff. But yeah, it's fun stuff. Absolutely. Let's say what's up to everyone here in the chat. We've got Happy Sanjo. What's happening, Koi? Great to see you, man. We've got Raymond Malibu doing we're doing great, man. Hope you are doing well as well, Raymond. We've got Ashton Luck in the chat. What's happening, Ashton? Great to see you, bud. We've also got Gene Whitacombe. How are you doing, Gene? How is the end of June treating you? Now that we are officially in summer, how is summer treating you so far? Let me know. Let's see here. We've got Ryan Olashow. What's happening, Ryan? I know you're super pumped about your Oilers forcing that Game 7. That's incredible, man, to come back from 3-0 down in a Stanley Cup series and force a Game 7. That is amazing.
My wife and I have been watching that. We watched the last one like oh God. We're rooting for the Oilers. I'm a Kings guy, but we're rooting for the Oilers right now.
Nice. How did you become a Kings fan, being an East Coast guy?
Honest to God answer, Davey, is it's not like we have any hockey team around here. Closest everybody likes is Pittsburgh Penguins. That's our closest team.
Gotcha.
But honestly, when I was a kid, I liked the LA Lakers because I was a kid of the 80s, Magic Johnson, and it's the Lakers. I don't watch basketball. I was just a kid and like that. And growing up, I'd always say, I don't know what's in LA. Dodgers. Dodgers is my baseball team still this day.
Okay.
And the Kings, LA Kings, when I started watching hockey, I was like, LA Kings. So just anything LA, I'm just like, sure. Whatever.
Okay, all right.
Plus the Kings, I always say, are the punk rock hockey team because Greg from Circle Jerks, who are in this very movie we're talking about tonight, Davey, is completely obsessed with Kings, has Kings on his stack when I saw him live, always wears Kings shirts. They're the punk rock hockey team, if there is one.
That's Greg Hetson, yeah?
Yep. Formerly of
also of Bad Religion and Punk Rock Karaoke, all that fun stuff.
See him with all those. It's great.
Yeah, and then let's see here. We've got Cody Snyder is in the chat. How are you doing, Cody? Great to see you in here. Got to crash soon. We totally get it, man. Yeah, especially if you're going to be driving around. We want you to be as safe as possible, of course.
Dream of us, Cody. Dream of us.
Dream of us. Dream of Repo, man. Yeah, so speaking of LA, I mean, that's a great way to just sort of get into talking about our movie here. What's happening, Ryan? How are you doing, man?
What up,
Thank you
buddy?
so much for coming back. What is the Cody said? Fuck the Pittsburgh Penguins. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? CM Punk. I'm so out of it with wrestling, so I'm just like, I can imagine it, but I don't know. I know of CM Punk, but I don't. You're a wrestling guy, aren't
I
you?
watched his documentary while he was still like mainstay WWE guy before all the switching and everything, only because he is good friends with Rancid and he's at a Rancid concert in it. And somebody told me to check it out, and he's like hanging out with Lars and stuff. So I watched this, like it was
That's
on Netflix
wild.
streaming or whatever, and I was just like, well, I'm watching for Rancid, but okay.
Yeah. And we've got Happy Sanjo says, did you already have all those posters and frames, or did you do some background shopping? Coy, I did have all the posters. I had to get some frames though. The newest poster that I have is the Dawn of the Dead one right here. I got that at H45. So and I had Ken sign that one for me. So
where do you get your frames? Because I'm about to need a lot of frames, Davey.
Yeah, I just went to, I think it was Michael's.
Michael's? Okay.
Yeah, because they usually have a deal where you can get like, buy two, get one free kind of thing. So I just did that. I've got some stuff that also, isn't on camera. I've got a really nice Dookie poster that's from the,
Nice.
I got that 40th anniversary or 30th
That big
anniversary,
set, the vinyl?
the box, the just giant
Yeah.
box. Yeah.
Yeah.
So huge poster there. And I have a big Halloween Ends poster.
Awesome.
Right here as well. Like they're giant, so they're even bigger.
I'm
than
gonna
this.
have to get a couple things probably custom framed. I got a Basquiat print that I've always loved, and my mother-in-law gifted it to us a couple years back, but still in the tube. And so above our new bed, that's what we want, is that Basquiat print framed above that. And then I have these 3 old Kevin Smith prints that sold off View Askew in like 2002. And they're just really long, almost looks like hear ye scrolls or something.
Oh, okay,
but
gotcha.
It's images from one from Mallrats, one from Chasing Amy, one from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and it's like a very colorized version, but an actual picture of a scene in the movie. And they'll have bubbles like in a comic book with all the dialogue in there. They've never been hung up; they're still in the tubes. I've always wanted them framed. I'm going to put them in the hallway.
Yeah,
those are like my 2 big projects I want framed.
Awesome. Got to get those up in the studio too. And then Raymond Malaber says, I'm all good except coming off watching a bad movie before this. What movie did you watch?
What
Raymond?
movie?
Tell me. Yeah, tell me all about it. And then we've got Dude Who Loves Movies. What's happening, Cody? Great to see you. He says, what's up, movie punks and everyone? Don't forget to roundhouse kick that like button.
We got
Thank
blessed
so
with
much.
a roundhouse kick by Cody. The night's perfect.
I can count on it every time. I love it. Every time he pops in, we get that. And it's awesome because, we're always supposed to remind you guys to like, but it's so much nicer when somebody else does it for you, right? We've got
I hope you're doing good in the heat. Davey was just telling me how hot it is out there. I know you all live close to each other. So we're going through a heat wave here. I can only imagine you guys.
Oh, it's brutal. Yeah, it's hot and humid. And Cody, I think you just had a birthday. So
happy birthday,
belated
Cody.
Birthday, man. And then we got Big Rod is in the chat. We've got Nicholas McMath in the chat. Jamie Hart has jumped in the chat. So the chat room is filling up. So I guess this is the perfect time to start our movie talk here. Let me bring up I thought we could kind of be organized here a little bit since we've got the StreamYard. So, Foz, do you want to kick things off with your overall thoughts on Repo Man?
Well, I don't know if this goes into another thing. Is this the part where we give our backstory with it, or just or is that
totally? Yeah, no, we can do that as far. Yeah, let's work that into the overall thoughts. Okay. You can kind of like tell your your story of how you found the movie, and then just just your overall thoughts.
I know I mentioned this to you off being live, but I said the last time I watched it was last night. I watched Joe Bob, and then we watched this. I was up till 3 a.m. watching this because I was only going to start it, and then I couldn't finish it. I was like, I'll watch the first like 10 minutes of. No, dude, I was up till 3 a.m. watching the whole thing. I love it. I love it, Davey. It's just so smart. It's just so funny. my wife had never seen it before, and just some of the stuff was catching her off guard that she would catch. And be like, "What in the world is this?" And I'm like, "You're just gonna have to sit down and watch the whole thing, because if you're just a passerby of this movie, you're not really gonna get. You have to sit and watch Repo Man, and multiple times, honestly, to fully get it." When I first saw, I was thinking about this. I was 15, and one of the biggest things that impacted my life was we had a really great local library. And the head librarian was this guy named Keith. He was he was like in his 40s and in the 90s, so he was like an old punker from like the 70s and early 80s.
Oh wow, yeah.
He had moved to like San Francisco at some point in the 80s, and when he moved back, he was a grown adult and stuff, and had this great collection of films that he brought with him to the library, and then started getting more films for the library. So Repo Man was one of my early days. I came in there when I was like 14. I had my mohawk, and it was all, I'm a punk rocker. And Keith was like, "Oh yeah, you think you're a punk rocker? Check this movie out." And gave me Repo Man, and my mind was blown. I had so many movies that I learned from him there that just changed my life forever, and this was at the top. First of all, seeing the circle jerks in the movie, and we'll get to that, but it just made me be like, "What? I don't get it. That's them? What?" And like, you know, I'm over here with my group 6 cassette, and I'm like, I don't get it. So it blew my mind, and it's taken me. I'm now 40. I'm now Keith's age, and it's taken me this long and multiple viewings to fully like comprehend. Like, oh, I get it now. Just the pokes and jokes and how whip crack it is. It's not just, hey, Emilio Estevez is a punk. Now he's a Repo Man. He hates everything. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, it is. It's a really trippy movie. It's got this like kind of dream-like feel. You know what I mean? It's fever dream-esque. It just sort of like it. It moves along so swiftly, which we were talking about before we went live. It just hits the ground running. It's about an hour and a half, and they don't spend too much. Yeah, they don't spend too much time trying to explain things, which is why, to me, it has that kind of more dreamlike feel. I mean, I guess you can make the argument that like a lot of movies feel like dreams just because of the things that are used, the storytelling mechanisms that are used. But this movie really is like a scene just ends, and then all of a sudden Emilio's in a car with Harry Dean Stanton, and they're just in the middle of a conversation. It's very, it just pours over into, scene after scene.
I love that their version of a montage is not just like a montage with the song. It's you'll get a line in a scene and it's during the day, and then it'll be later in the same car, but it's dark and they're doing speed rails, and they're talking about the same thing. They'll cut to something else, and like it's just like it cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts.
Yeah,
but you get it. Like you don't lose anything on it, and it's a style.
Yeah.
When was your first time seeing it, man?
So my first time, I think I saw this one probably somewhere around like 10 or 12 years ago. Like really not something I watched when I was younger. But definitely a movie I heard about from like the people that I knew that were older than me. It was probably recommended to me by the time I was like 17 or 18. And for whatever reason, I just never bumped into it, or, I probably watched it on a streaming service my very first time.
I was going to ask if you had seen like the DVD, the old DVD, or the Criterion Blu-ray that came out.
I saw. Well, you had showed what they're putting out a steelbook in August.
No, okay. So Criterion has become infamous for this. Like I years ago had a Days Confused DVD from Criterion that's amazing. Then years later they put out the Blu-ray in the same packaging, same everything, just a Blu-ray. And now they've released that in 4K, same packaging, same everything. They're doing the same thing with Repo Man. Repo Man had this glorious Blu-ray that I have watched. I'd rented to see the disc, but I've never bought because sometimes Criterion's a little out of my price range. But I still have my old DVD, and I have it on Vudu in HD. And so just the other day, I was saying to you, I was like, all right, I'm going to find like a good used copy on the Criterion because I want it in my collection. I could probably get it for like $25 or so at this point. And that, like almost the same day, they announced the 4K from Criterion. It's the same awesome packaging. It's the same everything, but it's like $40. And I'm just going to go ahead and spend the money and get it because I want it. After watching it again last night, I'm like, I have to have the 4K of this. It's the same great packaging.
Yeah, it would be really cool because the visuals are, really nice in this film. I like the style. We'll get into some more of the stuff that I'm thinking about, more of like some of the social commentary stuff. I love the style. It would be amazing to see it, crisply, with a crisp picture. Necro Mechanimal says, "Yo, that Gleaming the Cube shirt is dope."
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I got a cool hat with it too, but it's who knows where that is right now. Right now, I was lucky to just get this shirt on and like get ready and be like, okay, let's go on the street.
And we got Cheesy Corn Pop jumping into the chat. What's happening, Cheesy Corn Pop? Great to see you. Jamie Hart says, I saw Repo Man in the theater. Of course, that's the running joke.
Of course you did.
Jamie's seen everything.
Jamie, I want to see you on a live stream and tell us all about your theatrical experiences.
There it is.
I need to see this.
And she follows that up with, when I was 14, I wanted Emilio Estevez to be my husband.
When I was 14, I wanted him to be my hockey coach, my best friend, Billy the Kid taking me on adventures. And I just wanted Emilio in my life. Still do.
Yeah, I mean, Young Guns was so amazing. I still think my favorite Emilio movie, though, is probably National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1.
That's great.
I'm such a sucker for that movie. I love that movie so much.
That's great, but I can never not say Men at Work, dude. Men at Work, all time.
Yeah, that's really good. There's actually a scene in this movie where he's chasing the Malibu. And he goes over one of those, one of the many, overpasses in LA. And I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if that's the same overpass that he jumps off of in Loaded Weapon 1. Well, his stunt double jumps off of.
Yeah.
And like lands in the pavement and like depresses the pavement and climbs out of it. And they commandeer kids' bikes right after that.
I listened to an interview with him on, Letterboxd. I always go on about how big of a Letterboxd user I am. And he got a full-on podcast interview on there when one of his movies came back out recently that he directed. And he talks about his favorite movies that he has made. He talked about Repo Man. And mostly about Harry Dean Stanton and how he made him a better actor and always expected the best of you. And if you didn't do it, he'd call you out. Even the director, he would call out. And so Harry Dean Stanton is the man. And he still holds this movie in such high regard that all these years later, he's talking about it on a podcast. So I know that Emilio is a true lover of film. If he's still, this is one of his favorites. I love it.
Yeah, it came along at a time in his career, right, where he was, known. Well, I guess it's kind of before his big, all of his hits, right?
Yeah, 84. So what is this, the 40th? You were saying?
So the 40th was in March. It released, I think, on March 2nd back in 84. But yeah, I would imagine for a guy that ended up being like a Brat Pack member and everything like that doing this before all of that must have been really nice because I think it gives him some edge, a little bit more edge. What would he
have been in before this? I was trying to think without looking at his IMDb because Breakfast Club came after this. Was this before or after That Was Then, This Is Now?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to take a look here.
Because that was a really good early movie for him.
So he was in The Outsiders.
Yeah,
he was in The Outsiders in 83. So that was before this, but everything else
Mickey
was
Mouse
after.
T-shirt.
Yeah, everything else was after. So so this is the I guess even in Outsiders he does have kind of a bad boy image, so he keeps that going here.
He was in one of the those like I don't know if it was Tales from the Dark Side. Chat, help me out. I don't remember what show it was. But he was, I always remember him playing a punk in an arcade, playing an arcade game around the same time of the early 80s. I always remember that episode, but I never remember what it is.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at his IMDb right now. I don't see it, so I wonder if it's not really him or if he's just uncredited.
I don't know. I just remember me and my friends always talking about Emilio Estevez being in one of those shows.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to look. Chat, you'll have to do the digging for us. We've got Melissa Wildcard in the chat. What's happening, Melissa? How are you
Hello.
doing? She's saying hello to everyone. So yeah, I guess we can kind of give, a rundown of the plot of the film. I would imagine most everyone here has seen it, but even if haven't, or it's been a while, I mean, for being a trippy movie, it's a relatively simple plot, right? You have Emilio plays a young punk Otto that, right at the beginning of the film loses his job at a grocery store. He doesn't do anything other than hang out with his punk friends. He gets kind of roped into doing this repo job without even knowing what he's doing. He gets kind of conned into doing it for a few bucks. And then from there, he just gets a job doing that. They're after this Malibu that's a $20,000 get if you
20,000,
can
bro.
repo it. But there's something going on. Whatever was in the suitcase in Pulp Fiction must be in the back of this vehicle here. And so
if the thing that was in Pulp Fiction is the thing that we're told is in the trunk of this car, as much as I love Pulp Fiction, better movie. Movie. I'm just gonna say.
And they would have probably been vaporized, I guess. So I'm guessing it's not the same thing. But yeah, there's this whole mysterious. There's like a group of kind of like Men in Black, sort of, going after this vehicle as well. So, and things take a few unexpected turns and get pretty wild by the end. I won't spoil everything, but it's a movie that's basically.
I'm not Davey. I'm not spoil. I'm not.
Oh yeah, I mean we can.
I'm just going to warn everybody.
Yeah, we can get there.
I love it.
I mean, it straight up turns into like aliens from space, and the car is like a spaceship.
You ready for the screenshot? You ready for the screenshot? Aliens.
Yeah, the aliens with the hair up. Yeah. So yeah, this movie it's pretty wild, and it's one of these LA movies from the early '80s where you can see the sweat and the grime on everyone. I was cracking up with Emilio. He gets like a girlfriend, kind of like in the middle of this movie. I mean,
the worst boyfriend ever.
Yeah, but also like they pretty much do it right away, right? I mean, like he goes to drop her off at the United Fruitcake Organization or whatever.
So let's back up a little bit. Here's the thing about Emilio. Emilio, even though he's our lead, he's our guy we love. He's a dick. He is not a good guy. He, in the world before Tony Soprano, he makes Tony Soprano look like a nice family man. He isn't mean. Well, he's just, he doesn't care, and he plays this character so angry, and everything is against him, and he doesn't give a fuck. It's the end of the world. They wanted him, I'm sure, to be the stereotypical characterization of a suburban punk. And once the suburban punk, they have nothing to be upset about, but they're upset anyways. Well, he takes that and runs with it, as in like somebody asked him to do something at work. Fuck you. Hey man, here's some money. You want a job? You want to help us out? Fuck you. Hey man, you want to be in this relationship? Fuck you. He just hates everything.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he immediately, when they offer him a job he's like, you guys are repo people? And they're like, yeah, you want a job? And he just pours the beer out that they gave him, just like this, like, you guys are the fucking worst, And I mean, his parents are kind of, they're sucked right into the TV. They can't even break their gaze from the TV. Mom's smoking pot and watching the preacher, and they've given all their money to the preacher. So it's basically like Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation, if Catherine didn't give...
he's the characterization of he was kind of loved, kind of not, left to his own devices by former hippie parents. They're in their own world. They don't really pay attention to him. He grows angry, grows a chip on his shoulder, finds punk rock, and now he's in a world where everything sucks. The world's coming to an end in his eyes. Doesn't even matter in 10 years. He might as well be dead. But right now he's just trying to get by. Yeah.
Well, and I think another reason why he's kind of a dick is he's just supposed to be like a 21-year-old guy. Like he's just not.
I think it comes out during one of those little things from the alien people is that because whenever he gives them his license, they say, "Are you sure you're 21?" He's like, "That's what it says, don't it?" And then later it says 21, and then backtracks says 18. So he is just.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so it makes sense.
At one point, "Hey, Dad, do you remember when you said if I finish school, you give me $1,000?" Well, I'm thinking about going back, and I have the money now. So
Yeah.
he's a dropout. He's an
Gave
18-year-old
it to the
dropout.
Yeah, and they gave it to the preacher. So we
That
have
was
an
a big
answer.
thing back then. People might not realize that now, Davey. That was a big thing back in the 80s, that people would give all their money and get hosed by these TV preachers back in the 80s.
Yeah.
That was a terrible, terrible thing. As the guy who has family members who are on TV that are preachers, I'm not saying that any relation to me is bad about it, but I've seen it. I've been around it.
Sure.
It's a business, y'all. It's a business.
Yeah, I mean, like, you shouldn't be giving all your money away to anybody.
And it really goes over the top with the preacher person, showing what
for sure
scam artist he is and everything. But it's just that's just something I'm passionate about, where I'm like, come on, y'all. Come on.
Yeah, well, that's been something that's been used for thousands of years, is like, hey, if you pay more money, it'll get you closer to God. I mean, I grew up Catholic, and the Catholic Church did that for a really long time, where they're like, you can basically buy off, like, you can, buy away your sins. Like, just go ahead and give us money, and that absolves you. We've got Necro Mechanimal has got an answer here for us. He says Emilio Estevez stars in the 1983 horror anthology film Nightmares, in the segment titled The Bishop of the Battle, as a video game obsessed teenager who faces off against a malevolent arcade game.
Dude,
that sounds awesome.
Thank you. You're my hero.
That basically sounds like they took that and turned it into Tron, or although I guess Tron was probably the year before or something like that. But an evil video game, I like that. I like that idea. We should bring that back.
Brain Scan, one of my favorites.
There it is. And then Jamie,
we gotta do a Brain Scan episode.
I have to see Brain Scan first, right?
I think we've talked about this probably. I assume everyone loves Brain Scan on the level I do, Davey. Sorry.
No, I remember seeing the VHS at the store and everything when I was a kid. I just never saw it, and I don't know why I haven't seen it. That's Edward Furlong's in that one.
Yes, Edward Furlong. The trickster is the bad guy in it, the evil villain. He was supposed to be like a new Freddy type guy. He's very cool. Promise is in the movie. Tad is in the movie on the soundtrack. Like, the soundtrack's great.
Nice. All right. Hell yeah. I'll have to check it out, because I'm totally missing out for sure. Let's see here. So going from overall thoughts into our characters, I mean, we've talked about Emilio here as Otto, Harry Dean Stanton as Bud. Like, you had mentioned how he, taught Emilio so much here, and just, how much he grounds the whole film. Boz has got a guest.
Sorry, my wife just walked through with milk for me so I can eat my cereal later.
Yeah. Thanks, what kind of cereal?
Right now we have Fruity Pebbles with marshmallows, and I have Honey Nut Cheerios for the classic, and she has was it cherry Fruity Cheerios, because they're gluten free, y'all. Gluten free.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Fruity Cheerios. I don't think I've ever had the Fruity Cheerios.
They're new. That's usually around what we get, is anything gluten free. That's also sugary for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've found that with cereal, it's like I'll probably buy a box of cereal once every 3 or 4 years, which I just did. I ate a bunch of Crunch Berry cereal. It was on sale for $3, which cereal's getting ridiculously expensive. When a box of cereal is like $6, you're like, what's going on here?
I kind of just don't look and just buy, Davey. Also, we're missing out, Davey. The joke is, I don't know what cereal. It's just cereal. Or we've got potato chips that just say potato chips.
Oh, yeah.
It says food. Well,
yeah, I love the can that just says food.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that a little bit, Davey?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can hop on over to that. Let me grab social commentary. Yeah, so kind of gave me a little bit of those They Live vibes, like John Carpenter's They Live, where although in this movie you don't need the sunglasses to see the subliminal messaging, because everything is so it's the blue and white label, just in bold lettering, saltines. Food,
you just came on to something here. You don't need the glasses to see it. You only need to be punk rock to see it and see that everything's a scam, man.
But everyone, it's weird because that's one of the weird things about this movie. And before we went live, I was asking you, like, do you think he's like dead and this is like his brain's last dream, or, what's going on here? That there are things that are clearly taken from our real world, you know, like
now
the
that is a
music
way to
and most
look
of the
at it.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is
It-
this kind of other world, you know, where TV Party from Black Flag is still an awesome song.
I always kind of looked at it as after I saw SLC Punk, had some years on it, I'd go back and watch this. I'd see it as kind of like SLC Punk in a sci-fi comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. I'm sure Repo Man was a huge influence on SLC Punk, where SLC Punk plays it straight, and they're like, "What's society? What's the world? It's all coming to an end, anyways. Who cares? We're punk rockers in the middle of nowhere." He, you know, in that movie, he plays it straight like that, and he can see some bullshit, and that's why he's always mad. But nobody else can. Just like in SLC Punk, his dad and everybody, former hippies, nobody can see it like that. So it's really cool to compare the two of the most punk rock movies around.
Yeah, there's definitely, you know, there's the scene where, what are the characters' names? Is there a beep going on back there? What was that?
Sorry, the beep was my brand new fridge, Davey, that if you hold it open for more than 30 seconds, it beeps at you to tell you, hey, the fridge is open, close it.
That would be cool if it just said that, if it was just like, the fridge is open.
I'm going to see if I can just make that happen. The fridge is now open.
And so there's the scene that we were talking about where, you know, like his kind of ex-best friend and kind of ex-girlfriend are talking, you know, they're punkers as well. They're about to rob a convenience store, essentially. But the guy is like, you know, once we have some money now, let's just like settle down. I want you to have my baby. And it reminded me, like, while I was rewatching it today, I was like, oh, this is kind of like how, you know, Bob wants to like marry Trish, like, you know, before Bob passes away in SLC Punk, and he's like crying about all that. And yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, if you haven't seen SLC Punk right now, what the hell are you doing?
It's the movie Punks, yo.
But yeah, there was something in there that I was like, oh, this is kind of reminding me of SLC Punk, but I know it's, you know, flipped around the other way.
The thing with that is, you mentioned him asking her to marry and have babies and all this stuff, settle down. You could tell that he's genuinely wanting a change in his life, that character, because they've been doing all this stuff. They've seen some crazy things over the last few days, and he's wanting to do it, but she's still in it. She's still in like doing rails in that scene, and she's just like, why? And she's just like, why? And he answers honestly and goes, I don't know. It just seems like the thing to do. It's what people do, you know. And that's the whole thing, where Emilio is pissed off young Punk and doesn't want any of that stuff, and it's ridiculous to even bring it up to him. This guy is feeling the same way, but now he's turning differently, and he's like, I don't know, I just want something else. And
exactly. Yeah, it's part of that, you know, just being, you know, kind of raised by society to want certain things. And then that's really funny, because a few minutes later, when he's like laying on the ground bleeding out and he's blaming society, and Emilio's, you know, Otto's basically like, that's a crock of shit. You know,
we're just two young suburban punks, you know.
Yeah.
And hear me out. Here's a weird thing I just thought of. Okay, so you got your potato chips, just says potato chips. Food just says food on the can. Beer just say beer. Drink just says drink. Whenever Harry Dean Stanton says, fuck it, let's go get a drink, and in the next scene, he comically puts down the six-pack that just says drink on it after he said, let's go get a drink. It's a joke. You could also put that to society, as in society is a blank thing that just says society, and I blame society. Well, here are the things that go into society: having babies, doing this, doing that. And it's just as bland and generic, according to this movie, as any of those things that they're eating. It's just stuff that you shove in your mouth and don't even ask about.
Exactly.
And that's punk rock, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I think that's the way that punk rock makes you look at everything, right? Is you start seeing, like, and I guess, you know, punk rock as an attitude, but it's something that, at least for me, it was like the music sort of woke that up, you know, of like, oh, maybe I need to start like thinking about things a little more critically. Or even if I'm enjoying things that are like mainstream or establishment, like, it's good to be aware of like what's really going on, so that way you don't get like sucked up in all of the bullshit.
Some alien society behind the scenes, or are they pulling the strings and want everybody complacent like in They Live?
Yeah.
Here's one more example I want to throw out there. I mentioned this kind of before. So in the beginning of the movie, one of the first songs that you hear is, and you see Emilio Estevez in a slam pit, and they're listening to Coup d'etat by Circle Jerks, and it looks great. And I'm watching this at 14 years old going, I want to be in there. Yes, Circle Jerks, yes. And later on in the movie, after he has settled in society, he's a repo man. He dresses like a repo man with the suit and tie and everything. And he's in a bar with a bunch of other straight, normal people, and they're talking about whatever bullshit with the alien people. He is watching a band and he goes, I can't believe I used to be into these guys. It was the Circle Jerks playing themselves, but in like, what would you call it?
In
Lounge
suits.
music. And they're playing like a loungy version of one of their songs. And he's like, I can't believe I used to be into these guys. It's like now the band that he thought was awesome, supposedly in this movie, has now sold out and became part of the system. And I think that's a straight play on, besides being a funny gag joke, to have the Circle Jerks in there, of to say like what you liked when you were younger can easily be corrupted. Just like he was an angry young punk, and now he's a repo man and part of the system, whether he wants to be or not.
Yeah.
And like the second part of that, his friends come and crash in, and he looks at his past and he goes, I can't believe I used to hang out with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I love when his girlfriend, or his second kind of girlfriend is like nice friends, and he's like, thanks, I made him myself.
Yeah. See, it's those whip tort things like that that's like made it such a good movie, dude.
Yeah, the film has a really like a nice dark sense of humor, and he is like, as he gets, brought into this world, what he likes about it is the danger. When they have their little run-in with the Rodriguez brothers in the LA River, area, and he's just like, oh, this is like car chases and all this suspense, like this is so much fun. So yeah, I mean, it's a really cool look at, kind of a nihilistic look, I would say, at a world which was pretty par for the course as far as punk rock went in the mid 80s and everything in the Reagan era. But also like one thing that kind of stuck out to me today when I was watching it is I was like, man, for 1984, for there to be a movie that came out like this, that is where like the punk rock culture is just, seeping into every frame of the film. I thought it was pretty special because even though punk rock, in a way kind of started in the, I guess you could say late 60s, but I think most people would probably say like the version of punk that we know now was more like the mid 70s. This was relatively new as far as like, punk wasn't that big of a part of pop culture other than, the way the Sex Pistols looked, like Liberty Spikes and stuff like that was just the way people viewed punk. Whereas in this film, we do get a little bit of that, but also, Emilio's character, even when he's wearing the mod look with like the shirt and the tie, he still
skinny tie really, really sold it.
Skinny tie with the tip cut off, just that kind of squared off look. And yeah, he still embodies like punk rock in its essence. It's a really interesting, way to make this film.
You bring up a good point that led me to near the end of the movie, at his last regular, like, I'm a repo man hanging out sort of situation. Somebody says something that stuck with me, and when you just said something that made me think of it, I'm going to deep dive here into punk rock history for a minute. So, okay, so we remember at the party at the end, whenever the wives, the repo wives, were all over him, and one of them goes, oh, so this is that new waiver boy we've been hearing all about hitting on him.
Oh yeah.
Here's the thing, to quote Decline of the Western Civilization Part 1, good news, people of the world, there is no new wave, there is only punk rock. New wave is what people called punk rock when they didn't understand punk rock or wanted to water it down to pop and put it out there. So the original Go-Go's were punk rock. By the time the world heard them, they were a pop band and labeled new wave because they were no longer punk, and it needed to be distinguished. Now, after a while, new wave became its own thing, obviously. It became its own thing. But at the time, especially around 1984, that was still around the time that if you were called new wave, it was like, what? Why are you calling me new wave? I'm either punk rock or I'm not, or I'm pop. And that was the thing. He was a punk rocker who now was selling out into the world. And these women, they didn't know what punk rock was, but they had seen, Tony Basil or something on the TV and heard it called New Wave. And they're like, oh, this hip new wave person coming in. Do you like the Cars? They didn't say that, but that's probably their frame of reference. Yeah. And it's like, while we grew up after the fact, like during and after the fact, we love New Wave. I love New Wave. But if you're in a punk rock band in 1980 and you're being called New Wave, you're like, something's weird here. Something's going on. What is this fake name New Wave? Same as several years before, whenever the Ramones and everybody get called punk, they're like, I don't know what punk is. We're just playing loud rock and roll. Same with grunge later on. And that's a societal thing. No grunge band was ever like, we're a grunge band until it became popular to be a grunge band. And then like Mudhoney even says it themselves. They're like, once we learned what money was to be made off grunge, we stopped saying we weren't and saying grunge are us. Come to us. We're grunge.
Yeah. And it's rebranding. And it's like, because the term punk rock wasn't as, in the zeitgeist or whatever, it just, all it meant was Sex Pistols and Ramones, I think, for most people. Right. And so when there are bands like Blondie that started coming up and they're more accessible, but they were still playing at CBGBs and all that stuff.
And
like,
that's a perfect
they had to rebrand it something.
Blondie was a pop band, but because they had those punk rock roots, they were rebranded as New Wave. Or like the Talking Heads and stuff like that. Talking Heads was never even a punk band. They were like an artsy band. They never once called themselves punk, but because they were at, CBGB's, Right Time, Right Place, they were a punk band.
Yeah. Well, and even like the Ramones sound like a beach rock band half the time, or like they sound like the Kinks or something like that. So it's like, well, now I guess we can go back. We can go back and say that the Kinks were punk now at this point. You can go back and say that punk started in the mid 60s, or gosh, if you listen to a band like the Sonics, you can say that punk started in the early 60s.
all that garage rock stuff. You listen to Little Steven's garage rock radio show, all that stuff he plays is early proto punk.
Yeah. Well, and
everything gets named after.
And the perfect we can just move over into the soundtrack here, talking about proto-punk. I mean, Iggy Pop wrote the titular song here.
The godfather of punk himself.
It's got such a beachy feel. It's got that do like that kind of like Spy Hunter, kind of Peter Gunn song, like kind of vibe going on. And he is, I think a lot of people look at Iggy and the Stooges as being, one of the first punk bands out there, and that was late 60s, early 70s when they were doing their thing out in Detroit. And definitely brings that kind of spooky vibe. And I think having Iggy Pop here, I mean, it is awesome to have the Circle Jerks and Fear and all that, but I think having Iggy Pop brings extra legitimacy to a movie like Repo Man. What do you think?
My favorite part of the movie is whenever Emilio is just sitting there.
Emilio!
Sitting there after his best friend's now just stole his girl literally after she asked they're about to have sex. Will you go get me a drink? He walks back into the room. She's having sex now with his best friend, and it's just like, oh, he's so moody.
He just doesn't even care. He's just like, oh crap.
Yeah, and
he's just like, easy come, easy go.
Is he singing Black Flag TV Party Tonight?
Yeah.
Which, okay, I will give you this. TV Party is like the biggest single Black Flag ever had. It's not like he's sitting there singing Nervous Breakdown or anything, but it was perfect because that song lends to what Repo Man is everybody's just glued into a TV. They don't even want to go out tonight. It's just like his parents. It's foreshadowing even his parents and societal norms that he's surrounded by and what he's rebelling against. But Black Flag is one of my all-time favorite bands, literally my all-time favorite band besides the Ramones. And he's just sitting there drinking a beer, singing As the Sun Comes Up. And I'm like, how many nights have I ever been out and I'm just sitting there bored singing Black Flag all the time? And this means nothing. We're talking about soundtrack though. I don't think Suicidal Tendencies is on the soundtrack, but the way he dresses with the drawing on the back of his shirt and everything is a total suicidal look. Like that is straight from Suicidal Tendencies in that first album era.
There is
so I can never not think about it.
Institutionalized is on the soundtrack.
Is it? I couldn't remember.
It is. Yeah, so they have one appearance here. The Circle Jerks and the Plugs have a couple appearances. The Plugs have 3 songs on the soundtrack.
I had the CD back in the day. Do you have the vinyl? I know you're a big vinyl collector.
I don't have the vinyl, but this is definitely one I'd love to pick up. I mean,
yeah, me too. I don't think I have the vinyl.
11 songs, and it probably runs for like 24 minutes. Oh, 37:20 is what they say. So there's a couple longer tracks, but mostly, shorter punk. Although, back in the day when punk was a little more experimental, I mean, the title track here is 5 minutes, 12 seconds. And not only did Iggy Pop write the song, but Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols plays on the track as well,
That's
which
cool.
I think is a pretty cool piece of news, and then or a bit of trivia. And then what's really funny is when you had mentioned the Circle Jerks being the band in the lounge. So what I wonder is, sure, that might have been them dressed up in the suits, but I think that Jonathan Richman is on the soundtrack, and I think that's Jonathan Richman, like the music itself. Or
I know it's Keith Morris singing because it's a Circle Jerk song, and Keith's on stage.
Or it's done in that style, because to me, during that whole scene, I was like, "This sounds exactly like Jonathan Richman." Like
I can see
that kind of jokey.
I know it was Keith and Greg on stage. Now I'm not sure who the other two was because they went through different bass players and drummers.
Yeah.
If you watch the Circle Jerks documentary, high recommendation. I love it. They go through the different phases of the different people who was in the band. And it was like every album had somebody different besides those two. They were the main.
That's how they were, man. Descendants and Black Flag were the same way, right? It was like switching people all the time. Yeah. Is the Circle Jerks documentary called Still Jerkin'? It should be. If it's not, that would be Still Jerkin' after all these years. Right?
Keith would Simon and Garfunkel kick out of that. Like I can hear him now being like, "Yeah, that'd be a good name."
Yeah, Keith and his dreadlocks just judging me for
falling out all the time. But I love him. I love Keith. I love Off. I love it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. Gene's got to head out for the rest of the evening here. Well, have a great night, Gene. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow in the afternoon when I do my live here. Yeah, the soundtrack to me is like, it's a standout. Some movies are kind of remembered for their soundtrack, or the soundtrack is one of those things that you always think of. Like a movie like, of course, I'm blanking on every single movie now with a good soundtrack.
Well, I'll say this.
I mean, Friday.
Friday. Were you saying the Friday soundtrack?
Yeah, the first Friday movie, like that soundtrack is like goes right along with, I think the Jerky Boys soundtrack was really good. The movie's but I love that soundtrack.
That Collective Song Soul Jail. I don't even like Collective Soul, but I always think Jail with the Jerky Boys movie.
Yeah, and it's got like Super Chunk is on there.
Oh yeah, I had the cassette, dude. It was great.
L7 does a great cover of Hanging on the Telephone, which is really cool.
God, that you just brought back memories. I probably still got that tape buried somewhere.
I probably do too. 2000 Light Years Away by Green Day is on there as well. What's happening, Medley Man? Welcome to the chat. There we go. The Crow soundtrack. Big Rod coming in, saving the day.
All time.
Yep. That's the one. Jamie Hart says Lost Boys. That's another really good.
I was going to say our movie for next month, which is coming up fast in a couple of weeks. That is an all-time punk rock soundtrack. Davey, what is coming up next month, buddy?
So coming up right after the 4th of July, we believe it's going to be the 6th. Is that the day it is?
6th,
yeah, the 6th of July, we are talking about The Return of the Living Dead, which is, a perfect film to follow up this one, a perfect film to have, ideally it would have matched up to where Saturday was the 3rd of July, because that's the day that the film happens. But we wanted to center it around the holiday with that one. And man, I mean, watching Repo Man and then, covering Repo Man and then covering The Return of the Living Dead is going to be a really nice 1-2 punch. The soundtracks would be a great 1-2 punch here. I mean, some of the same bands, we got some overlap here. So,
I'll
really,
say this.
Really good
when we started Movie Punks, of course, obviously, we're like, what movies are we going to do? And we had movies lined up. And we already have movies thought out for a year from the start date. We have so many movies lined up. But two of the main ones, when you say, what are you going to do for a movie show called Movie Punks?
Yeah.
Repo Man, Return of the Living Dead. And those are just obvious. You have to do those.
I think the Return of the Living, like, I think you came to the table with Night of the Demons 2, and then after that, I was like, well, let me look ahead to 4th of July because we got to talk about Return of the Living Dead, on
You
that
came
one.
up with Dawn of the Dead because it was the anniversary, and I was like, that's perfect, Davey, and let me tell you why.
Yeah, it's been great, and yeah, I mean, it's what's really cool is like, we could aimlessly just like talk about whatever kind of movies. That's great and everything. What's nice about doing something like Movie Punks is to be able to bring in the punk rock themes every time, and be able to talk about how that connects with like that community, and that, I don't know if it's a lifestyle or if it's just a culture, I guess you could say.
Baby. It's our life,
Yeah.
buddy.
Punk rock is definitely a culture. What I thought was really one of the things that was funny while we're still talking about the music is, I think in my Mandela effect memory, I imagined that there was a scene where they were actually at a show, but no, these guys are just hanging out next to like an empty warehouse building, just listening to music, slam dancing. They're just moshing to a boombox. Is that that's what's happening?
Basically it was a house party at the one dude that worked with him at the grocery store. That guy that had the worst luck of the movie. Last time you saw him, he's in a hospital after getting beat up. And Emilio Estevez just raises the thing, happens to see him, and he's like, Otto, and Otto just throws down the thing. Because it's his best friend, and he doesn't even like the guy. He doesn't care that he's beat up and in the hospital. I'm telling you, Otto is not a good guy. He's just
he's not. Yeah, and that's why I wonder, like, is this whole thing a death dream? Because it's just so bizarre. I know I keep on going back to that, but it's just so, the way everything happens is so strange. You've got the one character we haven't talked about here yet, Tracy Walter as Miller, the like mechanic guy, Bob from Batman '89.
I was actually going to bring that up. I was going to bring up two people, and I was going to say, but let's not forget Bob from Batman. He's the dude in this. He's the great one.
He's got, man, this guy is he's such a good character actor, because he's able to be like this, like, sage kind of character almost. Maybe not in Batman '89 so much, but I really love him here, and in like Drowning Mona, it's a similar kind of vibe where he's just like the all-knowing character. And
in this movie, it turns out he's right. He's right about everything.
Yeah, and it's also like, is he an alien? Is he the one pulling the strings the whole time? Was it all a ruse to get him that vehicle? Because he plainly says, like, the more you drive, the less intelligence you have, which is why he rides the bus to work and all that stuff. So he's basically saying, I'm a highly intelligent being, right? Sure. We always say that the beings that are from another, planet would be highly intelligent. And then he's the only one that can approach the vehicle when the vehicle is all minty green and it's electrocuting everyone, all the humans. He just walks right up to it like, oh, finally, my ship is here. And then once he invites Otto, is Otto able to get closer as well.
The way I see it, that's a great way to look at it. I didn't even think of that. The way I saw it was whenever he's doing his whole thing that sounds crazy to Otto, and to all of us, what turns out to be true, as he's talking about people disappear, hundreds of people disappear every year. Where do they go? And where do you think humans came from? And he's like, they leave in a spaceship, which is also a time machine, and go back in time, and and takes people from the future to the past. And so in my thing, I was thinking maybe there's like a group of people who are chosen to be taken to the past, like the smartest ones of us, the best ones of us. And they are the people who are able to touch, the car, like Excalibur or whatever, however you want to call it. And they get to touch it. And he sees Otto for what he is. And it's like, come on, Otto, let's go for a ride. And Otto's, we'll just go ahead and spoil the ending. That girl looks at him. They've had a terrible relationship.
This is great.
She tortured him. She literally pressed the button to electrocute him and torture him. And she goes, what about our relationship? He's like, fuck that. And
I love that response.
And she's like, I'm glad I tortured you. I'm like, dude, that's an example of he's not a good person. She's not even a good person. Why would he stay for that and have the marriage and have the babies when he can go and achieve higher bliss and see him have that moment of glee?
Yeah, and that's Leela, right? That's the girl, Leela or Layla. She is when we meet her, we think she's running away from like the Men in Black, but then it ends up
Yeah.
that she's in cahoots, that the
No.
organization.
I think you missed the part where they were doing they captured her, they take her in, they're talking with her, and at some point, you have to watch it with subtitles. It says, "Would you ever consider joining the CIA or a group that dealt with this?" And she said, "Of course." And the weird woman with the weird hand was listening to
Yeah,
it on the
metal
headphones,
hand.
so she brought her in. Is
Gotcha.
what I took away from it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm telling
Yeah,
you, y'all watch it like 5 times.
I must have missed that. I should have watched it 5 times in a row. Jamie chimed in here. She's like, "Oh man, I can't be here on the 6th, and I love Return of the Living Dead. I'm going to be risking my life once again as my brothers put on their own fireworks display. Pray for me. We will. We'll pray for you."
And what we'll pray for you, and you can watch us at any time.
Yeah,
that you can watch on the replay.
You can watch on the replay, right? You can, yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. You'll listen to us talk about Linnea Quigley for an hour and a half, just running around naked. And then we've got.
I almost said our second Linnea Quigley film, but I was thinking Now the Demons 1, not part 2.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much rewinding and pausing whenever I put on a Linnea Quigley movie. What is that, Foss? Mud Nelson is in the chat. What's happening, Gavin? No worries about showing up a little late, man. You can always scrub back or watch the beginning, later on, of course.
Apparently, we showed up late as well.
We showed up a little late, but that's okay. You know what? It's all about that. Like I always watch. I mean, I watch so many people on YouTube that go on late. It's kind of like the fashionably late thing, so more people can kind of show up and check on the stream. And maybe they haven't set that notification yet, but they're like, "Oh shit, they're supposed to go on," and they can do that. So I'm not trying to big time anybody, but just want to make sure that when we go live, we've got people in there, especially. Yeah. And then Big Rod says, "Make sure to comment on the replay. Let's get some eyes on the channel." That's so sweet of you to say. Thank you, Big Rod. Really appreciate that, man. Yeah, we're 2 away here on the Davey Deathray channel from reaching 700. So for whatever reason, some of those milestones were quick to come. 600 to 700 has been a little bit of a slog. But
get there, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, and I've just been focusing more on like the live shows and all that kind of fun stuff. And then, we've got other things going on in our lives. You're moving, and I'm working on this Gotham Noir movie that I'll talk to you guys about here at the end. But yeah, we can get back into Repo Man here. I wanted to discuss, and this kind of goes from what we were just talking about, the time traveling, Miller, the mechanic, being possibly an alien, or chosen by the aliens. The connections to 2001: A Space Odyssey, and this is just something that hit me today, where I was like, oh, this is sort of similar, because I see 2001: A Space Odyssey as kind of like the evolution of man. Is like, that's the whole story, is about how man evolved intellectually and created tools, and then man didn't evolve spiritually once man had created enough tools to keep on exploring. And then in this movie, there's similar kind of, again, a very trippy kind of dreamy movie. And then even when they get in the spaceship car at the end and they're flying around, there's the city shots where they speed things up really quick that are kind of like that, last sequence in 2001. They even flash the camera like right up on Emilio's face for a minute with all the bright lights on it, so they don't linger on it. Or yeah, it's not so much like a straight up homage to 2001, but it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. So I guess my question for you, Foz, is, am I way off on this, or do you think that there is something, some sort of point that they're trying? It's like they're not trying to tell you exactly what the film is about. They want the audience to interpret what's going on. Do you see that here, or am I just a total weirdo?
Sure, a lot of it is up to the viewer. Like what, that there was an alien in the trunk. That at one point this guy had this theory. That Emilio's always searching for something more and better. And then all that stuff comes together at the end. Literally, the entire movie with every character almost come together at the end, and then they go off. And I really think it's up to the watcher, the viewer, to decide what had happened. And a lot of 2001 was like that.
Yeah. So what do you? Because the movie just it ends kind of abruptly.
Yeah.
They're flying around, and then boom, that's it. So
we were talking about this earlier. It's very much like a punk rock track. It starts immediately and goes fast and hard, and then it doesn't waste any time and says, "All right, that's the movie, done." And that's a punk rock track.
Yeah. Oh, it very much so. Yeah, it is. The movie just gets going right away, and yeah, that's true. It's just like a 1, 2, 3, 4 Ramones track, and then everything ends on one. And it's just all of a sudden you're like, because things get so wild in the last 10 minutes of that movie. It really comes to a head really quick.
It does.
Harry Dean Stanton's character gets shot. A part of me is like, is this where Otto is like actually dying and he's having this whole like hallucination before he dies, or is he going to go back in time? How come we never got a Repo Man 2 that tells us exactly what happened?
I was going to ask you this very question. About a year or two ago, Alex Cox, right, was the director's name. He came out and said he was making a Repo Man 2. And this was like within the last 2 years he said this. But of course, it was probably one of those things where like, I'm working on a script, I'm going to get funding, and then nothing ever happens. What would Repo Man 2 be 30, 40 years later? It's 40 years later at this point.
Yeah.
What would that be?
I don't know. Like, would it be that Otto is like, he goes from that moment flying around in the car to sort of waking up, and there he is 40 years later, and he doesn't even know how he got there, and maybe he's living some normal ass life or something like that.
The thing is, he ain't going to get Emilio. If Emilio quits after one season of the Mighty Ducks show, he ain't going to come back for Repo Man. Even though he says he loves Repo Man, he ain't going to do that now. He's got his own stuff going on. So what would it be? Like, it wouldn't be a remake.
Yeah,
because Alex Cox probably just seem like he would do that.
But they probably but I bet the way that studios are now, because that they don't like to take chances. So they would be like, well, let's remake it and then we can do your sequel.
And that would be terrible.
It's like, because they don't want somebody to try to like remember what, it's like with Blumhouse just having purchased the My Bloody Valentine rights. Like, they're not just going to make a legacy sequel to the first My Bloody Valentine. Like, it is
even the last one.
Yeah, it is a popular movie, but it's been so long that they would be like, well, we need to reintroduce the story, and then we can make a sequel to that movie.
In my opinion, if Alex Cox did get a movie made, it'd be very low budget, which this one was low budget, indie movie, it seemed anyways. I don't know who the studio was or what the budget was, but it seemed,
It was Universal put it out.
Lower budget, I assume. It seems.
Yeah, I would bet the most expensive thing would be just the fact that you film in LA is probably the most expensive part.
And so I assume that now, if he would get this made 40 years later, it would just be something very weird and nothing really to do with anything. Tangentially, like, they'd probably be about a guy who's a repo man. Yeah. And from there, nothing else the same, nothing else connects. Maybe like one character connected to something that was connected to something that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, or they would like just, you could update it to where it's somebody that like, kicks people out of their homes, or you could even have them be like a politician or something, to where they're just,
I'm sure,
you've gone now. Because it seems like, a lot of the things that Harry Dean Stanton's character Bud says is basically like, when they drive around the neighborhoods, it like angers him to see poverty, but it angers him at the poor people.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, these people that are like, they don't pay their bills, and Otto is like, they have nothing. Like, these people, they're not the people that aren't paying their car bill. Like, these people are living on the streets, and they don't want to be that way. What do you want from them? Yeah, so it's like, I guess you could take it to that next degree where, like, if you did a Repo Man sequel, although why would it be called Repo Man? You could have him in a more powerful role, screwing over people in a totally different way. Just that he's like kind of leveled up as being part of the system.
Right.
Because he becomes part of the system here to a certain degree, and then he would just be more ingrained in that. And real quick, there was one thing. Oh, so the credits, a couple things about the credits. So Michael Nesmith from the Monkees is an executive producer on this film,
Very cool.
which is really, really cool. Really awesome. I think the Monkees in their own kind of way are a little bit of punk rock. They're part boy band, part punk rock. So they're like the Sex Pistols.
If you look at the Monkees, like I know only from like the movie on VH1 I watched about them, that was made about them. Like they made their own albums after a while. They got even after the TV show ended, they learned to play their songs. They learned to play their instruments. They wrote songs.
Yeah.
Head is just a big acid trip of a movie. They were no longer the boy band. It was like NSYNC went weird indie rock.
Yeah. And I think Nesmith was like a big part of that, of just like, I want to, I don't want to be faking anymore. I want people to know that it is us playing the instruments and it is us writing the songs and everything. So a little bit of a punk rock edge there, and really cool of him to produce a movie like this. It would, like, just imagine like this kind of stuff. This would never happen now, right? Like you wouldn't see that like, oh, Jack White is producing some like, gutter punk movie or something about,
It reminds me of, is it Ray Manzarek was the keyboardist of the Doors? He in the decline of the Western Civilization top era, like 79, 80, when X recorded and put out their first two albums, he was the executive producer of those albums. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. I always thought it was cool. But like looking back at like what you were talking about, a member of the Monkees produced this, Ray Manzarek produced that. It was kind of like a bridge of like the old kind of like psychedelic 60s LA going into the new punk rock stuff, and then being like, oh, I see what you're doing here. I appreciate it. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a cool. It's a good like bridge of the gap there, and then the Ray Manzarek thing. I mean, I think that's what makes X like sound so spooky. It's got a really cool sound.
Yeah. And like think about the usage of organs and stuff on those first couple albums. That they didn't have that live. And so getting in the studio with Ray Manzarek, he just brings them up to another level.
Yeah, he probably wrote all that stuff that was probably the easiest part of the job, right? Is just being like, oh, well, what can I fill in here? Yeah.
The first 4 X albums are classics. The first 2 are hands down 2 of my favorite albums of all time. And it works perfectly with this little era right here that we're talking about. It's early 80s LA.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's X would fit right along on this soundtrack. 100%. And then another funny thing I noticed about the credits, and I don't know if this is just a joke, but it lists the Repo wives, and one of them says Jimmy Buffett. Did you see that?
Did you know? Well, I didn't notice that. But
one of them says Jimmy Buffett, and I'm like, is that just a joke? Because I know the 2 women that are on either side of him, clearly, at least to me, they look like bona fide women. But I'm like, is Jimmy Buffett like in drag, like in the back? Because it lists off like 4 or 5. So I don't even know if that would be a speaking role, but I'm like,
I don't think that's real. I'd be hard pressed to believe that. But here was the thing with the Repo wives that I thought was a weird joke, or something was weird. It lists, and did you notice that where other movies go one way when they list credits, this was going like the other way, and it looked different. It was just enough to look different.
Yeah, and the credits going up.
Yeah, and the thing was, it was like
or going down.
Yeah,
because they usually go up.
The Repo wives were listed. There was like 5 or 6 of them listed, and then on the last one it said Repo wife number 1, and it had like 6 names with nothing beside of it. So it was like Repo wife number 1 and the person's name, and then like 5 or 6 more names under it. So like, was it trying to say that like 6 people played the one role in one movie after it listed all the others, and these are all different names? I was like, this is a weird credits.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at IMDb now, and it says Jimmy Buffett, additional blonde agent. So he must have been in one of those final scenes, right? When they throw more agents at him, because for most of the movie, it's just the 2 guys, right?
I hope that he's the one that's like this. This isn't a job. It's more like a spiritual experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that guy. So while we're talking about people, let me. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to mention this person specifically. I think their name in the movie was Light. It was one of the. It was the other guy besides Harry Dean Stanton that he would ride around with and do repos
Mm-hmm.
with. His first name in real life is Cy. S.I.
Yep.
Now I don't remember his last name.
Cy Richardson.
Cy Richardson. Thank you. I have to give it to Cy Richardson. He has been my favorite pop-up character actor in movies and TV shows for years. He's in Tapeheads. He's in Men at Work we were talking about earlier with Emilio. He's their boss that always gets onto him in that movie. You'd probably recognize him on different sitcoms and stuff he's popped up in. But let me tell you, Davey, what I always think of him as, I've probably even mentioned this before, I don't know. My all-time favorite sitcom is Wings. And shout out to Dude Who Loves Movies. Me and him talk about Wings all the time. There is an episode where Brian goes to meet. I don't know if you ever watched Wings. I'm sorry, I have to stop.
I did. No,
Wings.
I did watch Wings growing up. Yeah, I'm looking at his IMDb right now. So yeah,
so there's an episode of Wings where Brian goes to meet his ex-wife, who he stole from his brother Joe on their wedding day. Like Joe's fiance leaves him for Brian, and then she leaves Brian, and so went to wherever and they're doing like the Sleepless in Seattle thing where they're going to meet on the top of whatever big tall building and stuff. And Joe and Helen go after Brian and be like, "Oh, she's going to break your heart. She's not coming. Come on home." And this guy shows up. Cy shows up. He's like a taxi driver or something. That she had shown up and gave him like $20 and a message to go and give Brian. So in his form of like Cy the taxi driver, he is telling Brian this message of like, "I love you. I always loved you." Blah blah blah. And like this is a big message.
It's a Dear John note that he has to read off to her.
And Brian's like, I just want to grab you and kiss you. And he's like, "That'd be extra." Dude, I don't know why I just love Wings, and he's pitch perfect in that role.
Oh, but Wings is great.
Shout out to Cy, man. He's awesome in anything.
Yeah, I recognize him. I recognize his face for sure as one of those character actors. And as I'm going through his IMDb, this guy was in everything. I mean, he was in Hill Street Blues. He was in Sid and Nancy.
Also directed by Alex Cox.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
I did not know that. He was
Gary
also
Oldman
in
several years later.
Yeah, he was in They Live as well. Black Revolutionary. Men at Work, like you had said, a whole bunch of really great stuff. Yeah, I kind of wish that he were in the film a little bit more, but I get it with the hour and a half runtime. Like you have to give Bud and Otto that relationship. But he does get some time with Light. Who I thought he was calling Mike the whole time, but I guess it's Light.
Well, I had the subtitles on. I kept saying
subtitles,
Light.
Yeah.
So my favorite thing, I think it was showing the difference between Bud and Light. Everybody loves Harry Dean Stanton, ordinary fucking people. I can't stand him, and he's just always blowing rails and everything and trying to give him the Repo Man code and really trying to teach him some shit. And he gets mad at Emilio later where he's like, "Otto, I've tried to give you the keys to the Repo Man castle and you're just pissing it away." Basically saying some stuff like that. And he turns off the car and Emilio gets out and runs away. And it's the guy he's really bonded with. He's like his weird drunk uncle father figure. Okay?
Yeah, kind of like a father figure, yeah.
And everybody loves him. Then there's Cy, playing Light, and Light doesn't give a fuck. He's out for Light and Light alone. Where Harry Dean Stanton has this like whole repo code that he says we should not hurt a car, we should not mess with the stuff inside the car. Then immediately it cuts to a scene, which is just the movie style of Light breaking into this car. He's doing the whole thing to hotwire right after Harry Dean Stanton says we shall not hotwire it, and they're in there and they're looking at the Christmas presents and throw them out the window. Which ironically, and part of the reason they did it was one bust open, it was all money wrapped up. It was like stacks of money. And that's just what, Repo Man is saying is that, you always got to look underneath the stuff to find what you want and not just what you see when you see it. But he's telling, And while Harry Dean Stanton's like, only an asshole gets killed for a car, and like Light is like, I'll kill any motherfucker. I don't care.
Yeah.
They come to me, they're dead. And like he's
Yeah.
shooting at the house and everything. There's so two different dynamics. And
Yep.
you know, and Otto is just in the middle, trying to absorb it all.
Yeah. Yeah, and Light is also like, you know, with the Rodriguez brothers, when Otto is, you know, talking shit about them, Light is like, they're car thieves just like us. Like, what's the difference?
He knows the deal. He knows. And like,
Yeah.
I love how he's like, you like music? Yeah, these guys asked me to produce them, but imagine me managing a pop act. Fuck that. I'm like, Light is the fucking man.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah, really, really fun performances here by, you know, by the cast, and such a fun soundtrack to take you through the whole journey. What a trippy movie this one is. Let's see here. I think we've gone through all our categories here. I feel like we've talked about everything pretty well, unless there's something else you want to cover here, Foz.
I'll just say this. I know this is a bold statement, but fuck John Wayne. John Wayne was a Nazi, according to MDC, and according to this movie, it has a whole other take on John Wayne. And I've been a big proponent of fuck John Wayne for years. He was an evil man. Just go check it out. You'll find out. I'm not going to say the stuff he did, but check it out. He got a lot of people killed on a film set, and he's notoriously racist in the interviews. Anyways, in this movie, they make a comment about John Wayne, and I'm like, that just made this movie even more punk rock. Fuck John Wayne.
What did they say? I must have totally missed it.
The part where Bob from Batman is like cutting his hair or whatever, they use the F-bomb, and I don't use the F-bomb. Because we love and support everybody here on Movie Punks. We don't use that word.
I was like,
he says John Wayne was a F-bomb, and he's like, I installed a two-way, and they're all like, what are you talking about? They're about to kill him. He's like, it's true. I installed a two-way mirror in his house, and I showed up, and he was wearing a dress, and immediately they're like taking up for this guy. It's kind of like a Trump thing now, where people will just say anything to get around the bad stuff that he's done that is proven.
Sure.
And he's like, they're like, well, a lot of people like to see their friend fuck another person. Man, that ain't gay. That ain't nothing. And then others one's like, who's saying wearing a dress makes him gay? That doesn't make him gay.
That's a very progressive way of thinking back in 1984.
But the whole thing is, it's just like the Trump thing now. They just don't want to admit there might be something there, and they'll make up everything in the world. Meanwhile, dude's just like, I saw what I saw. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Oh, Bob. I'll call him by his real name. Oh, Tracy Walter.
Yeah, give him some due.
But the great thing about Tracy Walter is he's one of the, you know, he shows up in little bits in this movie, but every moment that he's on screen, there's something magnetic about him as a performer. Like, he really pulls you in. I mean, obviously they have great dialogue written for him, of course. But even, you know, similar to every moment that he's got in Batman 89 is so friggin' memorable. And he hardly speaks in that movie, right?
I don't think he does speak in it. It's just like the line I always remember is from Jack Nicholson, Bob Gunn.
Yeah. And the whole, like, you are my number one. God.
Sorry, I just watched the Born to Be Rad special that came out about Batman 89.
So
I got Batman on the brain now.
Oh, I mean, I've got Batman on the brain because we're doing this crowdfunding for that Gotham Noir film that I'm working on. So that's been, you know, I mean, I've got the Blu-ray right back there for Batman 89. And this is the summer of Batman, not only celebrating the original Tim Burton, but also celebrating Batman Returns as well, you know?
Hell yeah.
But forget those other two. What's up? No, I'm just joking. I think Batman Forever is fun. It's weird. It's like, you know, definitely a love letter to the old TV show. So I think that kind of works in a way.
The only one I really don't like is Batman and Robin, and there's stuff to put on and go, oh, that's cool, question mark. That's funny now, I guess. But at the time when it came out, I was like, no.
It's not the direction to take the character. That you could do cartoons if you want to do that, right?
But no matter what, Batman Forever had some cool stuff in it, but it also gave a Kiss from a Rose on the Grave. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a great track. You know, I think that soundtrack's got a few kind of bangers on there.
Yeah.
U2 had a
It's a
song
great
on there that
soundtrack.
was
Yeah.
one of their last good songs, I think. And
Am I
yeah, I
remembering
think
this wrong, or is Offspring on there?
Offspring is on.
Or is that Batman and Robin?
I think it's Batman and Robin. They do Smash It
Okay.
Up by the
Yeah.
Damned. They
Yeah.
cover the Damned. I think that's on Batman and Robin. Yeah.
Okay.
Chat,
Maybe I
let
was
us know.
mixing those. I remember YouTube Seal and other stuff.
Yeah, and I could be wrong. Maybe it is on Batman Forever. I do like Val Kilmer as Bruce and Batman. That is fun stuff.
Definitely.
I just wanted to get into a little bit of, I guess, you know, since we've talked about the movie, do you want to do like a little Q&A with the folks in the chat, Foz?
Sure.
Does that
Bring it
sound like a
on.
good way? I want to wrap things up before 2 hours because StreamYard will they have an AI feature on StreamYard that they'll cut out some little short clips for us as long as we're under 2 hours. So we still
Really?
have
Okay.
plenty of time. We're not in a rush. But I thought it would be fun since we sort of naturally wrapped up our thoughts on Repo Man. If you guys wanted to,
question for you, Davey.
Yeah.
So the other night I was watching a live stream of Late Night with the Davey, and I saw some excellent artwork coming down the line. Surprised the hell out of me, featuring your shows, including Movie Punks, and I loved it. When and where can we get this artwork, Davey?
So, you know, I did actually just upload. Let's see here. I think I might be able to show you guys here. Let me see. I know I can at least show off the designs. I'm putting everything together on Teespring right now. Let me get this going so we can take a look. I did end up putting our design on a shirt. Yeah, the designs, I don't know if you guys all were able to tune into you know, Late Night with the Davey the other night, but my buddy Cole Monroe Chitty is an unbelievable visual artist. And
when I saw me on there, I went, "What? That's me?" And like, dude, it was the best. It was the best.
I just sent him what I had, and you know, that the fun thing about working with creative people is I like just finding somebody that I trust and handing it to them and saying, "Do what you want to do." You know, very seldomly will I have like actual direction. And usually like he can kind of tell just from looking at what's already there, you know? So Cole and I have very similar sensibilities as far as like horror and all that stuff goes. So yeah, it was really cool to, you know, to see those designs. Let me see if I can, let's see here. I want to get over to our, because I've got it pulled up. There we go. Now, how do I actually look at the shop?
Oh no, I'm just staring at Emilio staring back at me. It's great.
Yeah. Well, how about this really quick while I look for that? Foz, why don't you answer this question from Medley Man?
Does anyone care about Nintendo games? Well, I enjoy Nintendo games, Atari games, Super Nintendo games. I don't know much about them, just what I grew up with, you know, and I've never had a system past the Super Nintendo. I never had a PlayStation or Sega, anything like that. So anything you want to ask me about a very minute amount of Super Nintendo games, I'm here for. F-Zero, I'll throw that out. I love F-Zero.
What about original Nintendo? You like that?
I do. We actually didn't have a system. We went straight from Atari to Super Nintendo. So, but my neighbor had it, and I would go over and play Duck Hunt and Mike Tyson Punch Out and that type of stuff.
Yeah, Medley Man, you know the way directly to my heart. I care a lot about Nintendo games. I'm such an old school gamer. Like as far as like new games, this like, you know, Resident Evil 4 is like my favorite, like, you know, game within the last, you know, 20, I guess it just celebrated its 20th year. But that's as far as like new games go, that's what I'm into. So of course I played through like the remastered version, but I mostly when I play a video game, I'm playing like old school Castlevania or Contra or one of the original Mario games, something like that. So I grew up loving the Nintendo. I mean, Tecmo Bowl, Baseball Stars, Ninja Gaiden, all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah.
Here's a secret shame of mine. I've never played a Zelda game. I always wanted to. Nobody ever knew had a Zelda. I've never played a Zelda game.
Yeah, you would. think you'd get into it because you really like Star Trek, which is nerdy and takes time. And
That's me.
so does Zelda. So does Zelda. It's nerdy. It takes time. I mean, the first game is so good. And
I
like,
would watch
I would
the
just,
cartoons and be like, I want to play this.
well, excuse me, princess. Yeah, the original game, grab a walkthrough online, get a ROM, play the original game. It's so good. That first game stands up like massively. I think the sequel is really good on the original Nintendo. I mean, I like all of them. I think my favorite out of like the more mature, newer ones, I really love Twilight Princess because it was dark. So that came out on GameCube, and then they ported it over to the Wii when the Wii came out. But that one is like the only one I've played that like has moments that feel kind of scary. So I really liked that kind of adult theme that they had going on there. And let's see. Oh my gosh, we got Allie. Girl is in the chat. What's happening, Allie? Great
What up,
to
Allie?
see you. Thanks so much for showing up. And I put it up before, but you were in the middle of talking, so I just gave a salute to Blu-ray Addict.
What up, Blu-ray
Great
Addict?
to
Sorry,
see you in
I'm
there.
always talking.
Oh no, hey, it's all part of the show, man. We just gotta, gotta make it work. And we got Eli Cortez in the chat. What's happening, Eli? Great to see you. And then Medley Man says, I ask because the new game reveals were awesome. Yeah, the Nintendo Direct. Yeah, they're doing a new Mario and Luigi.
I gotta ask what the Nintendo Direct. I don't even know.
Nintendo, it's just what they call their like announcements. So they do like an official announcement where the developers and the producers and everyone from Nintendo of Japan, they just present their like what's coming out for the rest of the year. So they finally showed off Metroid Prime 4, which I know a lot of people have been waiting for that game for over a decade. Then the cool thing about Nintendo is they have not lost their touch for like what got them to where they are. I really respect Nintendo for that, because all the other companies are like, well, how can we be the gaming system for like the grown-ups and all that? I think Nintendo does that, and also is like, we always want to have like fun kiddie type Mario games. Like no matter how old I get, and even if I wanted to play a game where you're running around with a gun like shooting zombies, I'm always going to want to play a fresh Mario game. Like no matter what. Like they got me for life. Mario is like, to me, cooler and like more recognizable than Mickey Mouse. And Nintendo is far better than Disney. That's for sure.
Always like the what was the name of the Nintendo magazine? I'd always read those at the newsstands.
Nintendo Power. Yeah.
Nintendo Power. I remember always looking at those in the WWF magazines.
Nintendo Power was amazing. I still have like the first few issues burned into my mind because we got those issues growing up as a kid. So the first one was like, they actually used like clay to structure, like it was for Super Mario Brothers 2. So they actually used like clay models and took a real picture. And then I think the next issue was Simon's Quest. And they actually, an actor in full, like, fully dressed as Simon, like almost like, wearing like a knight's mask and all this stuff. And he's holding the dismembered head of Dracula. Like Nintendo got in a bunch of trouble because a bunch of parents had freaked out kids. But to me, I was like, that's the shit right there. Like that's
sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. So if you have any other questions for us, just let us know. It can be Repo Man related. You can ask us about, movies, music.
Emilio Estevez.
Emilio! Nintendo games. You can ask us about that. Oh, let me show you guys the shirt here. Let me, I'm going to present the screen here. Okay. Let's see. Where is it at? Where is it at? I thought I had it all ready to go, guys. There we go. Okay.
Now.
Yeah. And now do it now. My browser blocked my screen.
What? Your browser is blocking us tonight, bro. Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, guys. So this is the design for Movie Punks. Let me see if I can zoom.
Cool.
Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit, guys. I don't know if it'll let me zoom in.
Hey guys, I got a new logo. Look at that.
Yeah. So my buddy Cole, I don't have all these tattoos, but man, I look really
Love it.
cool with a whole bunch of them. Yeah, so he just took the pictures that we had sent him and put together his own
I
little
just
version
noticed the
of us there.
tattoos. I
Yeah,
look like,
it's
well, I'm a
hilarious.
bit skinnier in it, so thank you, my good man.
A
But I also kind of look like a cross between a drunk punk and Bill Paxton in Near Dark.
little bit, yeah. I
Little
like
bit.
it. I love the boombox shirt, the
Oh yeah.
leather jacket, of course. I look cool in a vest. I've never worn a vest like this, but man, do I look pretty cool
Dude,
there.
I have a vest. I think I wore it on one of our first videos or something. You need to get a vest. We can have our official movie punk vest.
There we go. We got to do that. Well, then we'll get movie punk tattoos after that. How about that?
Hey, don't put it past me. I'll get it. I only have one tattoo, but I would get another one if it's for movie punks. I would.
Hell yeah. Medley Man says, when is the next community tier list? I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow, Medley Man. So we'll do, we'll do a tier ranking tomorrow during the live. I'm going to go on at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then Eli says he found Terrifier 2 Collector's Edition VHS
Weird.
at Walmart. That's crazy.
I didn't know that was a thing.
And what does the collector's edition come with? I mean, obviously you get the VHS, but you also get like a Blu-ray or some sort of way, or do you have a VCR at home, Eli? I haven't had a VCR for years.
T-shirt packages at Walmart lately. It's been like the Stranger Things that it looks like a VHS or something, but then it's a T-shirt inside. That type of stuff.
Yeah, they'll package like the VHS and give you a shirt along with it. Yeah. And then Raymond, I see here you had mentioned the bad movie. I totally missed it. What was that bad movie? Let's have a chat about that one.
Hope you ain't talking about Repo Man.
Yeah, you better not be talking about Repo Man. And then let's see here. I am going to I'm gonna stop sharing that one. I can show you guys the other designs as well really quick here.
Hey, will you judge me, Davey, if I'm that guy wearing my own shirt out and about and like we found Foz here and he's wearing his own movie punk shirt?
I wouldn't judge you. No, maybe no, I wouldn't do that. That's a little different, right? It's not like the whole Can't Hardly Wait thing where you're wearing your own band's shirt to your own band's show.
But it's even worse for me because I'm on the shirt. Like it'd be like I'm wearing myself on a shirt, and I'll be like, yeah, but it's a cool shirt, bro.
Yeah. It's a fucking cool shirt. This is pretty funny. Raymond says, you guys look like you're waiting to make a deal with Jay and Silent Bob.
I literally was about to say we look like a punk rock Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, it totally gives me those vibes too of just like leaning up against the, the quick stop. What's great is, Cole was able to like give us totally different facial expressions. We're not making those facial expressions in the reference material.
Oh, so bad.
I sent him. That's how good of an artist he is, that he's totally able to just make us look however he wants us to look.
All right, I got a question for you, Davey. Here's a question. Kevin Smith, what is the most punk rock Kevin Smith movie, and when will we cover it? I have my idea in my head.
Punk rock Kevin. Well, I haven't seen everything that he's done. I've seen most of the View Askew universe, but I haven't seen, like, you're probably thinking Red State or something like that.
That's a very good idea, but that's not what I was thinking. But great movie.
And I haven't seen that one, but I would say, I don't know, punk rock. I don't know. I mean, I honestly, I think Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is punk
cool.
rock in its way. To me, Mallrats and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back are the best ones.
You just nailed it. Mallrats. Think about that soundtrack. Squirt Gun does like the theme on it. I mean, it's very alternative and very grunge centered, and of the time. But how punk rock is Mallrats?
Well, it's got like Guilty from All is in the soundtrack.
Dude,
it's got
exactly what I was about to say.
Letters to Cleo do that cover of Why Do You Build Me Up, Buttercup.
It's definitely a gateway movie into punk rock. Suzanne
by Weezer is another great one. Yeah, that soundtrack's solid. Mallrats is easily my favorite Kevin Smith movie.
Here's a topic for a show that we could do sometime. Is not just you hear all the time gateway horror. Like Gremlins is a gateway horror movie where you go into horror without meaning to. Was a gateway punk rock movie with the soundtrack. I'd say Mallrats is easily. Angus is easily.
Angus, yeah. Angus
like
has
these
got
are
to be the
movies
big
you
one.
don't.
Yeah.
If you don't know nothing about punk rock, you get these soundtracks and watch the movie, and you're like, oh, I like punk rock apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, Angus was a huge one. I mean, I was like, I was into Green Day at that point, but I could totally see being like a little bit younger. Hearing Green Day for the first time with JAR, which is one of the. It's amazing that song. Yeah, it's amazing that song wasn't included on Dookie. But great that they could pull it out of their back pocket for a soundtrack like Angus.
That the greatest hits or the B-sides or something album, they put that on.
Sure, yeah, international super hits. So they've done a whole bunch of greatest hits. Yeah. I mean, JAR. I mean that soundtrack, there's a band called Ash that's on that soundtrack. They've got the Jack Names the Planets song, and then the Jackie Chan
Angus episode one day.
Oh, for sure.
Stories out the ass about Angus. I know a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and I got my own story history with the movie and the soundtrack that I'll save for the show. But that soundtrack is perfect. You can't get better.
Yeah, and it is so punk rock. That's a 1995 film, so yeah, we should cover that here on the show sometime.
It's so personal to me that in the movie they, at the prom or the dance or whatever it is, they danced to Mazzy Star. I made that our first dance together at my wedding, me and my wife, because it's that personal to me.
That's so sweet. Yeah, that movie, like as a kid when I watched it, it kind of made me a little choked up. Just because they do such a great job at, the movie's really fun and entertaining, but it, earns these serious moments with the humor and everything like that. I love those comedies that can, pepper in some of that sentimentality and do it to where it's just enough syrup and it's not too sweet, not too cheesy or anything like that.
Pansy Division is on that soundtrack, but they're not actually on the soundtrack, but they're in the movie, Deep Water. It's played at, I always never could get over this, it's played at the high school dance. What high school dance plays Pansy Division and Mazzy Star? I'm just saying.
Only a high school in a movie would do that, right?
Exactly, and they don't know what Pansy Division is.
They have no idea. Yeah, none whatsoever. Didn't Pansy Division go on tour with like Green Day after they broke, and it was a really
they were on Lookout Records, and whenever Green Day broke on Dookie, they had their tour already set with Pansy Division as the opener. More on that, Trey Cool played on a Pansy Division track, and you see in a lot of the promo stuff for the Dookie era, they're wearing, especially Trey Cool is wearing Pansy Division t-shirts.
Yeah. No, I remember all that stuff from that era. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a huge Pansy Division mark, and I'm all about it.
And then what Dance Hall Crashers are on there. Man, it's a really solid soundtrack. Yeah, that Enough is Enough. That's the song they've got on there. It's a really catchy song. So Raymond, the movie that he watched, I think we're finally getting around to it. The movie that he watched that was bad was Sound of Violence. The actress who played Mindy from Scream 5 and 6, about a deaf girl who gets her hearing back when her parents are killed, and she has to kill to stimulate and keep her hearing. I've
never heard of this.
Bizarre.
Never heard of this.
So sometimes movies get made and you wonder, we're still waiting for Friday the 13th and we're still waiting for A Nightmare on Elm Street, but a movie like this gets made where somebody witnesses their parents get murdered, they regain their hearing, but they have to kill people to keep on hearing. Like, these are the things that I imagine, like, how do you pitch this? How do you go into a studio exec's room and be like, now picture this, and then this is your idea, and they're like, yes, here's $60 million, go make your movie, and we'll spend another $60 million on marketing for your movie.
all these violence names always mix me up. What was the Ty West one? Was it In a Valley of Violence or something like that? It was a Western. It was, I don't know if it was the last one before X and everything.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was like a Western. I think that was what it was called. And then What's the new one that's out now? Everybody's talking about
In a Violent Nature, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's History of Violence, and
Yeah,
there's
good movie.
I mean,
good movie.
Sound of Violence is sort of like Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. A little bit of that. That's must be what they're going for.
I see it now.
Did you see In a Violent Nature?
I have not yet. I'm waiting for it to come on streaming.
Me too, because I heard lukewarm things. Raymond Malaber says Clerks is punk vibes. 100% Raymond.
100%.
Yeah, I mean the vibe behind the movie, of course.
It's
the
a
soundtrack
punk rock style of being made.
Well, and the soundtrack has, I mean, what? Bad Religion, No Effects, Pennywise.
Yeah.
I think
then you get the Soul Asylum and some more mainstream bands, but like you look at the bulk of the movie, it is punk rock bands.
Well, and I think Soul Asylum in their earlier stuff, they were more punk rock.
Yeah, they were
definitely had.
That's what they were.
Kind of, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that similar kind of vibe.
I love Goo Goo Dolls, by the way. I just saw them.
Goo Goo Dolls, same kind of thing.
Goo Goo Dolls, they were signed to Metal Blade Records. Do you realize that?
That's wild. That's
like,
wild.
Think about that. They were on, like while they were on the Freddy's Dead soundtrack, and even before then, because they had started to form into what the Goo Goo Dolls became with A Boy Named Goo. Those early songs are just punk rock songs, and even on A Boy Named Goo, like there's a couple of songs that the bass player sings. Those are just punk rock songs.
Yep.
It's a really good album still.
It's cool that they have that in their history. It's funny. It's almost like you talked about how they rebranded punk to new wave, and Goo Goo Dolls definitely rebranded themselves as, hey, remember when Bryan Adams used to write all the songs for soundtracks that were really cheesy? Now we're gonna do that.
Dude,
we're your guys.
How do you go from Freddy's Dead to City of Angels? I'll never know, but God bless them. Freddy's Dead's the better song, better soundtrack.
It is. That's a great song.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
They open up that movie, don't they?
I believe so. And then there's a music video where
track.
they're in a theater. Have you watching the movie? Have you seen that?
I don't know if I've seen the video, but I should.
You gotta look it up. But dude, and you pointed out something I gotta take and run with right there. Earlier in the episode, I said something about punk became new wave to be more like the pop version, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was the 80s, early 80s. In the 90s, punk bands became grunge bands, which then became alternative. That's how you have bands like All becoming an alternative band on the Mallrats soundtrack.
Alternative was the worst. That was the worst, because how can you say that, Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day don't sound anything alike?
But they were
how are they both alternative? It's really dumb. And then even the Goo Goo Dolls, like, at least their singles. Their singles are not.
And bands
their
like
singles
Sublime
are very pop. Oh yeah. Like, everything became alternative.
Bands. And it was like they used to call it college rock. Then it became alternative. Then it became indie rock. It's just whatever you want to pinpoint it as.
Well, and it was one of those things where it's like, alternative to what? Like, it's rock and roll. Like, how is Smashing Pumpkins, are Smashing Pumpkins really different? Like a band like that, are they that different than like the decades of rock and roll before them? Like, right. I don't think so. Like, I honestly don't hear it, especially if you put on a song like Tonight or a song like 1979. They literally sound like they were recorded from those decades, like the way back when. There's, of course, like Bullet with Butterfly Wings, you can say that has a grunge edge, but I feel like a lot of Smashing Pumpkins music was just rock and roll. So it's kind of just funny to me. God, it must have been terrible for Bad Religion to be like, how many of these rebrands are we going to live through? Because they started in like 79, 80. And so they've already saw the first rebrand. And then, Greg Graffin sitting there as a double doctor, having to call his band an alternative band in the mid 90s just to get infected on the radio, probably, I'm guessing. Right.
And now they've landed on melodic punk. Like, that's the thing. It used to be new school punk. Then it became melodic punk. And I'm like, so they're face to face? Because when I think of melodic punk, that's what I think of.
Or melodic. People will say like melodic hardcore. Like when people were calling like Millencolin melodic hardcore, I'm like, hardcore? Like, I mean, they're fast. This is skate punk, people. Yeah, like, come
that's
on.
what I was about to say.
It's a skate punk.
Skate punk.
And
even epitaph punk or fat punk, like specifically.
And then bands like, I don't know if you're familiar with Lifetime from New Brunswick, New Jersey, but people would call them melodic hardcore. And I'm like, I don't really understand what this term means. Because
And
when
then
I
look
think
at
of hardcore,
yeah.
I don't think of melody being at the forefront. So I would never think to put those things together.
And then nowadays, a good thing to look at is look at a band like Rise Against. When Rise Against came together, it was what she say? Alternative is a catch-all for anything too lazy to categorize. Yep.
Yeah.
But when a band like Rise Against came together, you listen to that first album. That's just a hardcore punk album, really. And
Yeah.
they were like people from other bands that came together to form this band. And the more they kept going, the more melodic and more, you know, not family friendly, but like radio friendly, I guess would be the term.
Hey, that's family friendly too. Right?
To get it. And like now they are a rock band. They are on the same shows as Papa Roach and Shinedown playing like, and there's Papa Roach. When they came out, they were new metal. Now they're a rock band. Or sure, at some point they were alternative. If you just keep going through the motions and keep staying in the sights of radio, you'll be termed whatever.
Sure.
So like Rise Against, and then I know Anti-Flag was one of my all-time favorite bands. Some stuff came out, and now they're persona non grata. But look at a band like Anti-Flag. When they came out, they were street punk, just like the Exploited Casualties, whatever you want to say, Ozrotten. They were a street punk band. Then they became part of the sellout. People would call them sellouts because they were like alternative punk band, and they were popular, and they got on this comp and had this video. But they stayed themselves the whole time. And at the end, the last two albums, they became rock bands opening up for Rise Against on these big venues. And I always, you know, found really funny that bands like Flogging Molly and Anti-Flag and Rise Against, they went from like being like popular in punk rock to then they get put on rock festivals, and now they're radio rock.
Yeah. Well, it has to be digestible, right? That's the big thing. And Rise Against is one of those bands. It's socially acceptable punk. You know, I mean, I never got into Rise Against. To me, it was always a little too slick and a little too. There's something about the screamy vocals where I was like, this just sounds so safe to me. It sounds like
album. That's where it's at for me. That's my sweet spot. I love it.
But I'm more of like an 88 Fingers Louie kind of guy. Because I know a couple of those guys, or at least what the bassist was. A couple of the guys, or is it just a couple of the guys?
Yeah. He was called Mr. What, I don't remember her name, but I remember 88 Fingers Louie. I got a couple of their albums. I like that rough and tumble kind of sound that they had. I felt like Rise Against was just a little too slick for me. Raymond says, I was just going to say Rise Against. I saw them on one album at a club, and the next album at the House of Blues.
Yeah,
it was weird.
Yeah, and they play stadiums now. It's just, you know, they completely blew up. I mean, it's, you know, more power to them. It's great to see people succeed with their art. I would never like be like, oh, that guy sucks just because he made money on his art. Right. Like, to me, it's like the art's first and foremost. It's like, I mean, if I don't like your music, I don't like your music. It doesn't mean I wish ill on you or anything like that. It's just like, it just is what it is. Like, I don't like Bruce Springsteen, like, so sue me, like, whatever. I mean, I feel like, yeah, the guy is like, you know, an icon, of course. But when I listen to most of his music, it doesn't inspire many feelings within me.
The thing about Springsteen, he has so many songs you can love one and hate the other and still keep going.
Yeah, I think just for me, it's sort of like all my punk friends would always talk about the album Nebraska, and I was like, okay, so there's one record that he did that has grabbed you, and then that's it. And when was that? Was that in the 80s, like when we were born? That record
I always
came
loved
out,
The River. The River was my favorite Springsteen, and that was 30, 40 years ago at this point, 40 years ago.
But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that somebody can have that kind of career. And Raymond says here, my two favorite Green Day songs are Wake Me Up When September Ends and Boulevard of Broken Dreams. So Raymond, I'm guessing how old are you, Raymond? I'm curious to know, because
betting he was in high school when that came out, because you can always tell who was the Dookie kids and who were the American Idiot kids.
I'm curious to know, because I felt like American Idiot was pretty boring. You know, it got everyone's attention because it was veiled. It was like kind of put in the disguise of being a political record, even though I think these songs were all written before, George Bush became president of the United States of
What
America.
was the
And then
one
it
song?
seems,
Jesus is Suburbia. I liked it.
yeah, that's one of the concept songs that's on there.
Yeah.
I think one of like the 6 or 7 minute songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, as far as like pop songs go, there are some good songs here, but nothing surprises me or is unpredictable or sounds tough. I feel like Mike's bass playing on this record, it's like he hardly was able to do anything on this album. It's, to me, that's kind of heartbreaking, because what I love about Green Day is how Mike's bass playing would move the progressions of the music and take 3 chords and make them sound so fresh and so new, even though we'd heard the Ramones use those chord shapes for decades before Green Day. So when American Idiot came out, I was like, I felt like the message was a little on the nose, and I just felt like the music was kind of boring.
Talk about a band that's had all kinds of different labels and everything. Started off Gilman Street as a little punk band, became the sellout pop punk band, and then became like the big emo punk band later.
Yeah, well, and just because they're wearing eyeliner
and stuff.
It's so, seeing them now is so bizarre, because I remember I would buy like every Hit Parader issue back in 1994 just to like talk about these guys. Dookie was their 3rd record at that point. It was their first big one, and to me it still seems so fresh and so like dangerous. They had just been homeless before signing that record deal. And I just, there's something about seeing them now and just being like, you guys are so well manicured and so like fake and Hollywood looking. I've never
liked anything since American Idiot era. Like, honestly, I've not liked anything.
Yeah, it was. So to me, it was just sort of bizarre. It's this whole like, oh, you guys like. I mean, I've heard songs since then. Like I heard when they did like the Uno Dos Tre albums, that Tre record opens up really strong. It's got like the first. I listened to the other albums, at least the beginnings of them, and wasn't grabbed. But the Tre one, like the first 4 songs, I was like, these are all really good songs that remind me of old Green Day. But yeah, I feel like Billy Joe is like hiring somebody to write his lyrics, because the lyrics just seem so like ad executive marketing kind of stuff.
Maybe it's the guitarist that's been with them forever and they never say who he is, or if
Josh Freese's, it's Josh Freese's brother. It's Jason Freese.
Is that really Josh Freese's brother? I didn't know that.
And now, so they're like a 5-piece now, because Jason has played guitar with them. I think since before American Idiot, after Nimrod, I would imagine,
that, man. I've seen
or Warning.
Yeah,
and then they have a keyboardist as well. Really? I mean.
Like it doesn't surprise. They're like a band of gypsies now.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I think honestly, it's a smart idea. Like if your band is, a 3-person band that's making millions of dollars and playing 300 shows a year, like you're gonna want a second guitarist. You're gonna want those keys to like fill in that space and make things sound like nice and full. And you get 2 extra people to sing backup vocals, right? Because Mike was the only one singing backups for everything before then. So Raymond says, I'm old, 55. My birthday is in October. The video for September Ends breaks me. So that's the interesting thing about that video, Raymond, is, I know that video is about somebody, basically getting drafted into a war and passing away. But the song is about something completely different. I mean, he wrote that song about his father who passed away in September. So it's interesting that the video is like, it's showing a tragedy that the song really isn't about. I thought, and maybe that's just, maybe I'm dumb and that's actually a smart move. Who knows? Because then you cover all those bases, Favorite Blink-182 song, Foz? You got one?
Damn It, or what was that one? Josie's song? I like that one.
Josie, yeah.
Dude Ranch, just the album Dude Ranch.
The album Dude Ranch is great. I really like so off the first full length, off Cheshire Cat, I really like that song Wasting My Time is a really good song.
That's a good one.
But I think Waggy, I'd probably pick Waggy as my favorite. I love that guitar riff. And I just love how they utilize the the 3-piece on that. You know, a lot of they embellish so many guitars on every record that they have, but I feel like Waggy on Dude Ranch is one of the songs where they don't embellish the guitars too much, so it still has that like power trio kind of feel, which I have such a soft spot for that power trio. Like I love like listening to God Damn It by Alkaline Trio. Like, you know, it to me, there's something about a 3-piece. I just love it. I love it so much. But yeah, we got to wrap things up here because we're coming up on 2 hours.
Right.
So I want us to be able to cut this thing up easily through StreamYard. Any closing thoughts here on Repo Man before we head out here, Foz?
Watch it. Buy the Criterion. Send me a 4K of the Criterion. Send him a 4K of the Criterion.
Yeah, I'll take one.
We love Repo Man here at Movie Punks. And if Alex Cox does come up with a sequel, we hope to be taken to the premiere so we can come out and be paid to say wonderful things about it.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah, guys, this is, you know, if you haven't seen Repo Man, it is such a fun, you know, punk rock movie from, you know, the mid 80s. It feels, like I said earlier in the stream, kind of like a fever dream. It's a really interesting, you know, way that they tell the story here. The narrative is really interesting, and it just moves along. I know I say this all the time on the channel, but if you can make your movie right around an hour and a half, like you've probably got me, you know, liking it so much more than if it's like 2 hours plus.
And I actually will say this one last thing. You don't expect going in, you're like, okay, this is some punk rock movie, whatever. You don't expect the genre to be sci-fi dark comedy, and that's what it is.
Yeah, the very first time I watched it, it completely, I didn't know too much about it. So I just went in knowing that it had a punk rock soundtrack, and then it was Emilio Estevez, and then it was really good. That's what whoever told me to watch it told me those things. And so, yeah, it takes you on all these really fun little twists and turns. It's a really, really fun experience, and definitely a punk movie if there ever was one. So yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap it up for Repo Man with us here tonight on Movie Punks. We will be back on July 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're talking The Return of the Living Dead from 1985. Really looking forward to that one. You guys have been awesome hanging out with us here. I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday night. I will be live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern on my channel to do the weekend kind of roundup. We're going to do a fresh tier ranking with everyone. And then at 4 p.m. Eastern, I'll be on the Horror Show channel. We're doing Horror from the High Desert. So that's a brand new show we've got going on over there. That's a panel show for all of us desert folks out here.
I love that.
And then,
that's great.
And yeah, hell yeah. And then, guys, I'll make sure to put a link in the description below so you can check out the shop. You can grab one of those new shirts. I plan on rolling out a brand new shop, probably on a different site here pretty soon, and we'll have all of the new designs up there. So really looking forward to getting that all rolling here. And yeah, Foz, with less than a minute and a half left on the stream, what you got? Are you gonna be in your man cave next time?
Maybe 2 times from now, but hopefully it's coming. Find me everywhere at Foz Rotten. Follow my YouTube, Foz Rotten, everywhere Foz Rotten. Come holler at me.
There it is. The links will be in the description below, guys. You all are awesome for hanging out with us. Hope you have a great rest of your night. Don't forget to hit the like button. Share this with somebody that you know that loves Repo Man or just loves punk and dirty, grimy movies from the 80s. It's a damn good time. Really appreciate you guys for showing up. I love you so much. You guys fuel everything we do here at the channel, but this is going to be it for us. Thank you so much for joining me once again, Foz, my Movie Punks brother. And we'll see you next time around. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your night.
Bye.